Hi, I'm Mary Burton, and I write romantic suspense. And today I wanted to talk about novel writing, one draft at a time. When I first started writing, I used to think really the successful writers could sit down and start typing, and the story would come out just perfect. And I quickly discovered that my first attempts at writing were very far from perfect, and I got really frustrated by this. I couldn't quite figure out how to tackle a novel when there were so many things that I felt like I was trying to handle at one time. So I kind of backed it up and decided to break the novel writing process down into 6 steps, 6 drafts. And I decided that each draft would have its own job, its own purpose. And I wouldn't be worrying about what I needed to do in the other drafts. I would just take it one draft at a time. So the first draft, I call this the sloppy copy. This is when I take my synopsis and I sit down and I start writing the book. I usually set daily page goals. I even write them on my calendar, usually 15 to 20 pages, and I start writing rough draft. I do not edit. If I hit a spot where I need to do research and I don't have time, I just leave it blank. I keep moving forward because the goal is to get the story in the computer. Because, later I can go back and fix a sloppy copy, but I can't fix a blank page. So at this point, my goal is to get the book down. And initially, in the very beginning, when I started writing, I would stop, I would research, I would edit, and I just wasn't making any progress. So that's why I decided just get that rough draft down and I'll worry about fixing it later. Well, fixing it later it begins with the second draft. And the second draft, this is when I start to make sure that all the major pieces and components of the story flow, that the story has a kind of sequential order to it. Because sometimes in the sloppy copy, if a scene comes to me out of order, I will go ahead and write it. And I won't bother to put it in the right place or smooth it out. But during the second draft, I do this. This is also when I start making a list of the characters. It's easy to forget what a character looks like, their name, so I start making a list of the characters. I also start making a timeline. Each chapter has a date and a time, and I keep an order of that because it helps me to figure out the sequence in the books. And part of that's romantic suspense because time is a big factor, but it's helpful in any type of book you do. And I also keep track of the number of pages in each chapter because when I write the sloppy copy, I'm not worried about that. And I've often ended up with pages with chapters with 6 pages and other chapters with 45 pages. And so this is when I start to figure out where I can start kind of dividing the book up evenly into workable chapters. Now the third draft, this is when I start to do the editing. This is when I start to focus on not so much the words, but character motivations. I really want to know what's driving my characters because what's driving them, and I might have a clue about it when I wrote the synopsis, but there's something about writing the book that you learn a lot about your characters, and you can kind of drill a little deeper into what's driving them. So this is when I really make sure that I can define why everybody's doing what they're doing. And knowing this, it helps me not only with descriptions, it helps me with word choice, things I'm going to be doing in the next couple of drafts. So really, this is the time to make sure the book it's not only flowing correctly now, but it's also, you understand what's really driving everybody. Now the third draft, this is when I really start to get into word crafting because I'm starting to work on the sentences. I'm starting to cut the words out that I don't need. And what I have is a last draft checklist. And this checklist is full of words that I have a tendency to overuse. And what I'm going to do is post this on my blog. So if you're curious, just look for one draft at a time on my blog. But their words are sort of like just, so, have, glance, nod. I can't tell you how many times my characters nodded. Again, it's not really it's not always an effective action that makes a story that much sharper. So this is when I'm going through Another trick I've learned is to make sure that the last word of every sentence is strong. You know, we have a tendency to focus on that first word, but I also focus on the last word because there's a big difference between a sentence that ends with, say, of, or one that ends with death, that kind of thing. You know, that kind of suspense will pull you to the next sentence, pull you to the next sentence. Into the scene, strong word, pull you to the next scene. So it's important that that last word is strong. And I've discovered if it's not a strong word, chances are your entire sentence is weak. Also, I look for passive voice at this time. It's easy to write, you know, when you're writing that sloppy copy, not to worry too much about action or crispness. And this is the time when you really want to dig this out. The next draft, I call this the big read. And this is when I print the entire book out. You know, I've gone through, I've written it, I've made it structurally correct, I've evened out the chapters. I know my themes, I know my characters, I've kind of cleaned out all the junky words that aren't adding any value to the book. And then I print the entire book out. It kind of looks a little bit kind of like this. It's just a lot of book. And I take it away from my desk and I sit down and I read it. And this is when things will pop out at you that you might not have seen on a computer screen, but you will definitely see it when it's in hard copy. And this is also, if this copy is in pretty good shape, by the time I've gone through it, this is the one I'll also give to the proofreader. And then what she'll do is if she's proofing it, I'll print another copy out for myself and I'll proof it. And so the hope is that we both find as many problems as possible. And then it's the last big print, and then it's off to the editor. And that's how I write a novel. And you may find that the way you're doing your novel writing is working really well for you. And then I would say, don't worry about it, or take bits and pieces from this and use what you need to use. But that's how I tackle it, one draft at a time. Thanks.